Meghann,
Keoni.
how long's it been?
Um,
When did we last see each other face to face? I mean, I know you don't know the day, but
my last memory of you is probably sophomore year.
wow.
Yeah.
What was the memory?
We had a class together. And
What was the class? Because I was thinking about that, and I don't remember any of that shit.
History, maybe. Who's the pretty blonde teacher?
Mrs. Krejci.
Krejci.
So let's talk real quick about Krejci. Let's just jump right back into the mix.
Okay.
She's the best teacher I've ever had.
Really?
In my life.
I did not have that experience, but
Really?
I'm glad you did. Yeah.
Wow.
But that was mostly my fault.
Okay.
For not being a great student.
Well, we'll talk about that too. So this last memory in Mrs. Krejci's class, what was it? Or was it specific or?
Not specific. I just remember you being there. I remember your vibe in high school.
My vibe.
You had a vibe.
Talk about this because I don't understand it or know this individual anymore.
You're not aware of your vibe?
No, I'm aware of my vibe.
Okay.
But I'm very aware that my vibe back then was a lot different than my vibe is right now. So
I would agree. The underlying...
This is great. This is great. I can't wait for this.
The underlying or sometimes very in your face tone of, I wouldn't say aggression, but just don't fuck with me. But what was interesting about you is you were one of those people that you meet people and you think that person knows something. You know what I mean? Like that person knows something I don't. That person has something deeper. And I know that this layer is bullshit. That's what I got from you. You seemed like you didn't seem like you were very smart. You were very smart, are very smart. But are very smart. But
what is that thing that you're talking about? Like this deeper thing. I've heard other people say that, not specifically about me, but when they meet somebody.
Yeah.
Have
you not felt this about other people?
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Where you just kind of like immediately resonate with them and go,
yeah,
there's something.
They understand things. They have a different understanding of life, maybe, or very different life experiences. Yeah, I mean, everybody has different perspective and life experiences, but there's just something about certain people that you're like, you know. And there are a few people from high school that I always thought that person would be really cool to talk to, but I would never have had the balls to talk to them, and you were one of those people.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I remember us talking, like at least somewhat regularly.
I don't remember that.
Not like we were besties or anything, but I felt the same thing about you. We didn't talk all the time.
No.
But you were somebody that I was like, I can vibe with this girl. Like, I can immediately just go into chill mode, which is kind of what we just did, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was a whole ball of issues in high school. And I think that if people that knew me now knew who I was then, they wouldn't believe it.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think some of the greatest people now were a ball of issues then, because that makes you, it makes you stronger.
It does. Yeah.
When you fight through that stuff and you really take a hard look at yourself and you're so self-aware and you embrace your crap, that's what makes you such a great person.
That's really interesting. And I agree, but I've never had it. I've never had somebody say it to me like that. But I had so many issues back then. I was in so much pain. And you know what's crazy? It was social anxiety.
Really?
Yeah. It was. I was so shy.
Really?
I was so shy. It
came across as very don't fuck with me.
Right.
Like,
but
I am right under the
but
surface.
whose parties was I at?
Well, I wasn't at a lot of
Well,
parties either.
I wasn't at any.
I just figured you were at the cooler parties.
No. They're doing seedy things over there. Keoni's over there. No. I didn't go to parties. I didn't hang out with people. I had a small little group of friends, and I kept that pretty tight, but they were all kind of nerds, and I'm kind of a nerd too.
Yeah. You know what's funny, though, is yes, I went to parties. Some people say I was popular. I don't think I was popular. A lot of people knew me just because of the activities I was involved in.
Sure.
But I wouldn't have said I was popular. But I was always envious of those groups, the smaller groups, because I want connection. I don't want all the hullabaloo, you know?
When we got to Jeff, I expected middle school and elementary school on a higher level. I expected there to be popular kids. And what I found was, and maybe this was my perspective because I wasn't injecting myself into these social situations. But I felt like there were just like little groups of people. There were the nerds, there were the jocks, there were the princesses, there were the, and they all kind of commingled, I felt like, pretty well.
Yeah.
I never got the idea that somebody was like there was Mean Girls. I never got that. There was a bad seed here and there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And there were of course groups of girls that were bitches and guys that were total douchebags, et cetera, et cetera. It goes, but I didn't ever see like there was a social hierarchy there. I saw there was so many students that there were like little groups within the bigger group. I didn't feel like I fit into any of the groups at all. And I tried to keep somewhere in the in-between. And that don't fuck with me thing was just a huge facade. I was dealing with all kinds of internal turmoil because my parents and I had never had a home for more than like a year, 2 years. Then I got to Harrison, sorry. And in the third grade, I had kind of like just gotten used to habitually staying to myself and going, I'm not going to get close to this guy because remember Jeremy Spears? Like, remember what happened in kindergarten?
Yeah.
And so when it came to sports in a time when I should have gotten into sports, I loved running. I loved phys ed. I didn't do it. Yeah. And I didn't do it out of fear, social anxiety and fear that I didn't want to get on a team and let people down. Like losing in letting other people down was crippling to me. So I didn't do anything. And I'll tell you what, when you don't put yourself in social situations and you're a teenager and you want a girlfriend and you get angry, you know what I mean? All those hormones rushing through you and no way to outlet it, you get aggressive.
Yeah. I was in those situations and I was still aggressive. My relationship with my parents was shit, and I was calling out for attention and help in any way that I could.
And a lot of people are. But
it's the age.
What the message I was putting out was not in any way reflective of what I was actually feeling. I was like, that was a persona that was who I wish I could be, this angry guy. You know, it wasn't until I found martial arts when I really felt like humbled in that way. But it was tough. Like the martial arts thing, the crazy thing is this whole experience leading up to this moment now. It was all born of that anger and that frustration. And in sophomore year, I was putting it out into the world. Like, Megan, I'm not kidding. Some of the shit that I did sophomore year, I would be still in jail for, probably. Wow. I mean, that's exaggerating. I don't want people to be like, what? But like we
cancel Keoni
somebody
hashtag.
Cancel culture. No. Fuck you guys. But I would like run out with my friends and we would, Wilson Avenue.
Oh yeah.
You know that big set of train tracks that's like the big bumpy thing?
The big bump.
Me and my friends, he had a Ford Festiva, my friend Nick. And on the front of his Ford Festiva was a Mustang
logo?
Logo. Okay. From the front of the Mustang, it was ripped off.
Okay.
He ripped it off and then he zip tied it to the front of his Festiva, which is not a Mustang, by the way. So we called it the Festivang. We went over that thing 55 miles an hour. We went over that thing, airborne in that fucking car multiple times.
Yeah.
Slashing tires, I one time accosted my ex-girlfriend's house with 3 or 4 dozen eggs. We got arrested.
Really?
Just all kinds. Like, looking back now, I go, these kids out here, like, they're in danger. I so many times could have went into a bad situation and not been able to get out of it. And as a parent, now, you look back and just go, oh my gosh, what in the fuck did my parents go through? If you were lucky enough to have parents that cared. But I sit around now and think, now I'm coming up on 41. And I'm like, wow, I've known people that are 20 that passed away. I know people that passed away 30 years ago. Yeah. It kind of starts creeping up on you. But all of that was kind of born from that anger. So where's your anger come from? Let's dive into that deep stuff. Because everybody's got trauma. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. And if you like, I'm starting to understand now how this whole thing works and self-reflect and go, my traumas, good and bad, really did shape me.
Absolutely.
And at one time it was really hurtful. And now maybe I look at it like, well, yeah, it hurt me then, but it tempered me. So what tempered you the most? What are some of the key moments in your life coming up that...
I am the youngest of 6, and I always say that my parents were done raising kids when they got to me. My mom would argue with that and say that, sorry, siblings. She would say that I'm the only kid that she was actually excited about having. But I knew I was loved, but I never felt loved. I felt very much in the way. My oldest sister really took me under her wing, and but I was sexually abused when I was little. And
what age was that?
I think starting at 2 or 3.
Oh, so it was early.
Yep. So to be sexually activated at that age, and then then you come up into your hormonal years. Yep. That stuff is like up here.
Oh, yeah. It's uncontrollable.
It is.
It's absolutely uncontrollable.
And you don't know how to handle that. And it kind of becomes your identity. I know I didn't sleep around or anything, but it was very much
in your conscious thought.
I connected it to love. This person cares about me because they're doing this with me. Right. And that's how I got into a really bad marriage, Yeah.
Well, that happens to so many people. Yeah. With sexual abuse, it blows my mind how much it happens. Yeah. And people are now just now starting to go, oh shit, this is a real epidemic problem, a cyclical thing, right? Who, if you don't mind saying, who was it that sexually abused?
One of my uncles.
Yeah, it's usually inside the family.
Yeah. And the major part of anger wasn't even from that. It was that nobody did anything.
They knew?
I told my mom. I don't remember telling her, but she didn't do anything about it. She didn't report it. I was still taken to that house to have sleepovers. And I remember very vivid picture in my brain of going to a sleepover and just wondering the whole time, where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to sleep? And I slept on the floor with the door in full view, and I stayed awake for as long as I could, just anticipating that door would open. And my chest is tight right now because I can feel that feeling that I felt.
Like robs a child of their innocence. Yeah. 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 Doesn't allow a child to do and interact in normal ways. Now there's this sense of dread there should be elation. I'm sleeping over. Yeah. And now you're fucking up my life in the way that I see these types of things.
And just the message that it sent, with nobody standing up for me, nobody saying that shouldn't have happened, that's wrong, nobody should do that to you. nobody speaking out, made me feel like I don't matter. I'm not important. I'm not worth it. And that has, I would say, just in the last maybe 5-6 years, I've finally started letting some of that go. So that took a long time.
Yeah. Takes a lifetime.
Yeah.
But stronger people prevail.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, every family now, my own family, my people you would never expect have had to deal with this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I was a kid, I would just think to myself, like, what makes somebody like this tick? And then I would find out, well, the previous person that molested them is what makes them tick.
Right.
What do we do?
I don't know.
What do we do about that problem?
I don't know. But it's funny that you say that, you know, what makes that person tick. Something that I have learned from my past, that I love and hate. I shouldn't say hate, but
you want to.
Right.
Yeah,
about myself is that I'm so, like, I always look at things from every possible angle. I want to understand the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. I'm glad that I'm like that. But it also has...
It's like a blessing and a curse, kind of.
Yeah. It also has made me forgive things. I don't want to say forgive things that are unforgivable, but...
Let things go.
Let things go. Not stand up for myself.
Right.
Oh, I get it. You had this, and that's why you treated me that way. That's
like
okay.
Justifying it, kind of. Yeah.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the old Iowa, oh, sorry, that's okay. My fault. I'm the one that ran into you.
Well, and it's like not okay, right? But
right.
I understand what you're saying. I think that's probably why we can connect easy, is because we do that. We're always trying to figure out like the big picture thing and all of the explanations and the whys.
Yeah.
But you can say that's not okay and still go, I'm going to let that go.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But don't fucking do that.
I don't forgive you.
You're right.
You should be chemically castrated. But what do you think about that?
About what?
Chemical castration.
Oh, gosh.
For sex offenders.
I don't know, man.
I know that's way off. Like we went hard.
We went
hard. We went hard, right?
We're in the festivang, and
but
we
you know
just
what?
went
like
55.
I don't understand it. I don't understand how. I feel like if this is a cyclical thing, there has to be an extreme.
There does, and I love the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth sort of.
I do too.
Punishment
within reason, right?
With
reason.
Intent.
Yeah.
However, I mean, it's the exception to the rule, but you do hear of people who have reformed themselves and, you know, now are speaking out, now are apologizing, now are trying to do what they can to stop abuse because they were an abuser.
Yeah. It's easy to forget about them too. It's easy for people to go, you should burn anyway. And, you know, that's easy to do, but it's not easy to look at it objectively and go, okay, well, they're keeping themselves away from these temptations. They've done all this stuff, but
and they're a victim as well. And, you know, yes, they made bad decisions, but now they're saying that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. And trying to help other people not.
You would think in a court of logic, you would have you'd have reasonable, credible evidence to say, this is why we should be less, why we should give this person a chance or not throw them away and lock away the key.
Right.
But there are some people, I believe, that their crimes are so heinous that
absolutely.
I understand why cruel and unusual punishment is something that we want to avoid in a just society.
Right.
But I think there are some cruel and unusual crimes that deserve just punishment. And I don't think just punishment is locking somebody away and psychologically torturing them. I think just punishment is sending a message to a society that if we have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, we will fucking execute your ass publicly. Right. And it seems like, oh, well, we're not that type of society. Well, I feel
Maybe
like
we should be.
I feel like people like this, people that would even entertain these types of thoughts, a clear message should be sent to the world that, like, if you're going to entertain these thoughts, if you're going to victimize children or innocent, the powerless in any way, we're going to put you on display. We're going to show other people why. We're going to traumatize and burn into their memory why you don't do this in a a liberated culture, so to speak.
Yeah.
So when did you get past the trauma of this? When, or you said in the last 5 or 6 years you've come to terms with
I
it?
would say past the trauma. I'm still not past the trauma.
Think you ever get past it?
I don't think so, but I'm at peace with it now. I'm not past it, but I mean, I still have like still frames of the event or what I think is the event.
Sure.
Keep in mind I was 2 or 3. It's like, is this a memory or is this something that my brain thought up? I don't know. So I still have those flashbacks all the time. So, and you know, if I'm with someone, they might touch me a certain way or whatever, and you just have to, oh shit, yep, and just block it out. So
you're never really past it.
Never
in a way.
Really.
You kind of temper yourself to it.
Yeah.
That sucks. When did you feel like because you said in high school you're kind of a loose cannon like me. When did you feel like you graduated past that stage in your life? Because for me, it took a while.
It took a while. Well, no, mine didn't take that long because it just it came out in other ways. I got pregnant senior year. And,
oh shit! As did many.
Yep. And
at least it wasn't freshman year. There's a lot of them. I mean, what else? It's still happening. I mean.
It is. But you know, I had my first child 2 months after we graduated high school, and it was boom, I'm an adult.
Sure.
You know, everybody else was going out and dating and, you know, fumbling their way through lives and going to college. And I was playing Susie Homemaker. And so I couldn't be that anymore. I never wanted kids. People are always shocked to hear that since I have 7. Never wanted kids. And part of that was because of the abuse. I was terrified that I was somehow going to become that person. Even, you know, it was never in me. I mean, just changing a baby's diapers, sometimes I would just be like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah. But an intelligent
okay.
mind,
Like sometimes I would talk to my kids, I have to wipe your bottom, you know, like, it sounds ridiculous, but I was just like apologizing for caring for
it makes sense. Like you have that constantly in the back of your mind.
So never wanted kids.
So you had 7.
But the second after I freaked out when I found out I was pregnant, I can't explain it, but just this peace came over me that it was going to be okay. And I swore that I would be the best mom I could be. And that's what I did.
Do you think that came out of your childhood and going,
absolutely.
I'm going to right the wrong?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I've talked to so many people that, and my mom will even say it too. She says that I'm a good mom in spite of her, not because of her. And I don't think she was a bad mom, but she had her own shit too, you know?
Yeah.
We all just dealing with our shit.
That should be the name of a book. We're all just dealing with our shit, okay?
Right.
Just settle down.
So, yeah. She, the only difference is I didn't know that she was going through her shit. Of course, I know if my mom's coming home every night and slamming the door and immediately going up to her room. And,
I've had those too.
And saying, and, you know, staying in her room until it's time to come make dinner and then angrily yelling at us that dinner's ready, you know, that it's not like, come and eat this meal I prepared for you. It's, yeah.
It's like I'm hearing out of my own past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think everybody deals with some version of this.
Yeah.
I read this book, Letting Go. It's like whether people can let go of certain things or whether they want to let go of certain things.
Right. Right. Do you find yourself getting sucked into that same routine ever?
What routine?
Repeating how your parents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Me too. Yep.
My dad was an incessant tinkerer, and he would fix this and fix restless. Yeah. Just restless. Could never stop moving. And I'll find myself like vacuuming my floor in the bedroom at like 11 o'clock at night. Okay. Because I'm not interested in stepping on any little particulates down there. I want a clean floor. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't give a fuck.
It's happening now.
Yeah, I'll get up there and I'm not shitting you, Megan. I'll get up there and I'll be like, fine, I'll go get the vacuum. And I do it. And my wife's going.
It's just like, there's something just prodding at your brain and you can't shut it off.
My dad, like, I would wake up in 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And to some rustling in the kitchen in this house that we moved into, actually at Jeff. And my dad would be there with a marble at one side of the kitchen down by the floor, and he'd roll it and go and watch the marble go down and go, I knew this floor wasn't level. I'm like, Dad, it's 2 o'clock in the fucking morning. You can level the floor tomorrow or start on it. But it's kind of a curse in our family. And maybe it's not a curse in our family. Maybe it's just a curse in some families, but our minds are always spinning. Yeah. I can never shut my mind off. And at night, I feel like when the physical activity of the world comes to a pause, that's when shit in my mind starts ramping up hard.
Then the megaphones come out. Yep.
The big questions about what is lurking out there in the ethos and you know, the big questions. That's really all I have really left to answer now for me and myself in my life. And I think once you get to 35, 40, you go, okay, I got most of this kind of down.
Pretty much got it. Yeah.
But now where can we go from here?
Right.
And that's what's really interesting.
Let's apply
to me. It. So when I was a troublemaker, sophomore year, I was running out and just doing all kinds of this shit as this like release of anger, you know. And then I met this girl through my brother and his girlfriend. And we kind of hit it off. And at home, same thing. Dad was like, you need to get a job. And I'm like, Dad, I'm going to school. I hate school. Just let me get through school. And then I know that I'm going to need a job. I know it. But just let me get through school.
Right.
And my mom understood this point, but my mom, like crazy authoritarian.
Really?
Yeah. She would, like, my dad was the nurturer, right?
Really?
Yeah, in the creative.
Because your mom seemed so chill from that video that I saw. But
smoothest conversation we've ever had. Usually, like, we were joking about how we didn't debate about politics and stuff, but she is very sweet, but she's also older in her life. Back in the day when she was, you know, a bodybuilder, she was pretty intense. Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
She was really intense. And so my older brother, she kind of let do whatever. She had him when she was 15.
Okay.
So she was a teen mother. And he got into all kinds of trouble. So I was the only planned child, and she brought the hammer down really, really hard on what I could do. No girls in your room. Like, some of my friends were like, oh yeah, Betty Sue came over the other day and we just hung out in my room for 4 hours. I'm like, what? That shit doesn't happen at Koner's house. So naturally, I rebelled hard. I had all this angst. I had all this anger. And then I had at home, I had people breathing down my neck, and I rebelled hard. And after I did all kinds of shit that I got away with, like kicking somebody's concrete lion off of a pillar and then dragging its 250-pound ass into a Festiva and then taking it out to the woods.
Oh my god.
Having somebody else steal it out of the woods. That's just one of the fucking crazy, like, I'm telling you, it was months of this shit. But then I met Tish, and my brother moved to Belle Plaine. And so I was like, maybe I'll just move. And I had talked to people about this. And you were
how old?
I was
sophomore?
I had just turning 17.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually junior year. Yeah, junior year. And so I told the few remaining friends that I had that I ran around sophomore year and the early junior year with, hey, I might be leaving. And I'd told them that before.
Yeah.
And this time I just kind of meant it. And I went to the office. I got my transcript or whatever.
Yep.
And I was like, I told my teachers, and I kind of got the same vibe from them. Oh yeah, haha, Keoni, like you're not going anywhere. You've been here for 3 years.
I think I remember this.
Yeah. And
was it like well known?
I mean, it had to have been because one day I just wasn't there.
Okay.
Like there was one more semester of school.
Yeah.
And then just, that was it. I told people, hey, Monday I'm leaving town.
Right.
And they're like, my friend, I remember telling Chris LeClaire, one of my buddies, and he's like, yeah, okay, dude, you're leaving town again? And I'm like, no, man, seriously, like I'm out. Here. And I had this weird feeling that was just the end of that period of my life. Like I just chose it and just left. And I've talked to people that we went to school with, and people would be like, hey, do you remember this guy? Yeah. I'm like, no.
Really?
You remember this girl?
You just blacked it out, you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it's that I've met so many people and heard so many names through the gym and business ownership. Sure. But other people are like, oh yeah, you remember Jeremy Brown? Yeah. And I remember Jeremy Brown like vaguely, but I'd be like, no, I have no idea who that person is. And I've had people come up to me in public. Yeah. And go, Keoni. And I'm like, hey man, you guy. I am a horrible person. But
you know a trick for that? I'll teach you a trick. My daughter taught me this. Say, I'm so sorry, I can't remember your name. And they say their first name, Meghann. And then you go, no, silly, not your first name. Your last. Of course I know you're Meghann. What's your last
dark
name?
Psychology. Dark psychology. That's slick. That's really sick. Yeah. Did you ever hear the one about like, the running joke that women don't like to decide where to eat? Yes. Kind of thing.
Yes.
There's this really slick play that it was like this. Go to your woman and go, hey, honey, guess where we're going to eat tonight? And then the first thing she says, you go
take her there.
Yep.
That's very
when she
smart.
goes, Chili's? Yep. And if she ain't happy, she's deceitful. So anyways, I left. I just bounced out.
And went to Belle Plaine.
And I was, in that time, I was saying all kinds of angry things to myself. Nobody's going to give a fuck anyway. You know what I mean? Okay. And I knew that they wouldn't. Like at the end of the day.
Nobody meaning anybody or your family?
Anybody at school. Oh, and I knew my family. That was the hardest part. Okay. I left on Mother's Day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was not a good situation.
Wow.
Yeah. Mom was upset about that one.
Yeah.
I just packed my shit up in the back of a car and rolled out. And it hurt me because my dad, real sensitive person and cared so much. I was like his golden child. You know what I mean? He worried. That's all he did is worry. And so when I left and I went from being in his house, being his boy, to being on my own and not talking to him for 3 weeks. Yeah. Like it takes years off a parent's life, you know? And so that and my younger brother, leaving my younger brother made me feel like I had betrayed, like the deepest secret I could make with the universe, because I loved hanging out with my little brother. Yeah. So it was
How much younger is he?
He's 8 years younger.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was 8 when he was born. Yeah. And it just like it pained me to be away from my family, but I couldn't do it anymore. Right. I needed to show that I was ready to adopt whatever this thing was. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Yeah. But so I left Jeff, and I knew that I kind of thought to myself, in 3 months, nobody's even going to remember me. My good friends will remember me, but the majority of people out there are going to be like, whatever. And at that point in time, I did not have high aspirations for myself. I thought military, prison, death.
You actually thought
that's what I believed
about prison.
I thought I was in such a hopeless place in my own sense of self-confidence. That I thought that those were the 3 most likely paths to my life. And I said that over and over to myself. Wow. Like I conditioned my thinking to go, you better get in the military. Because if you don't, you're going to be an empty headstone somewhere. Wow. It sucked. Like I didn't to go from there to where I'm at now is mind melting to me. You know, to have that kind of perspective makes me feel so humble and just gratitude to be alive, because now we've been alive a while. We have seen how things change, and how kids that were in my shoes or your shoes, they make one wrong call. They get into one car where somebody's just drank too much, and they're gone. Just like that. So I got to Belle Plaine, and we lived off popcorn basically for
Did you
weeks
live with your brother?
So I lived with my brother first, and up there in the apartment, it was Tupac just dropped the 2-disc set. And that was on repeat for months. And the marijuana, there was so much marijuana in that apartment. Like I was at that point still celibate and still like, nope, no drugs, no booze for this guy. I'm untainted.
Wow.
You can't be untainted with that much weed in there, because even if you don't smoke it, you're going to get high.
Right.
So I was now in this apartment in Belle Plaine with weed pouring out of it, parties every single night.
Right.
And I wasn't in that scene. So whenever it was around, I was like, I'd kind of like fade away. And we had some neighbors next door, Kurt, that I used to go kind of chill at their place. It was a little slower spot.
Yeah.
And
so this was all your brother orchestrating this stuff, and you were just an innocent bystander?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not my brother necessarily, but my brother, his friends, the social circle that hung around there. I was literally just a naive 16 turning 17-year-old kid who lived on the couch.
Right.
And I brought my stereo and I brought all my shit up there, so I lived up there, but it was wild. Like it was such a freeing time to be alive for me, because I felt so out of control. Like I didn't have anything really. I just had my stereo and a couple things and a pet snake, and that was it. And I got to play my music loud, and it was just like, it was I don't know if you know, talking to you, and this is, you know, something to think about, but I had nothing. I had no attachments at that age.
Yeah, I haven't experienced that.
Well,
and you know what? Are you happy that you had that? It sounds like it was very freeing.
Well,
was it terrifying?
It was both.
Okay.
I almost died.
I have regret that I don't have that.
I almost died because I lived far away from my parents. I got bronchitis. Okay. They were on vacation. I tried going to the local clinic, and they're like, "We can't see you." And I'm like, "I'm telling you, Meghann."
Because
like,
you were underage?
Right. And
really?
Because they're like, "Well, if you don't have insurance, we can't see you. We need your parents here," and all this shit. And I'm like I might die. Like I'm seriously, I cannot breathe. Yeah. So for 3 days I sat in an apartment and was told Tish, my future wife, to watch me while I slept, because I didn't think I was going to wake up.
Oh, wow.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
And
no way to get a hold of your parents or grandparents.
I don't have any money.
Right.
I'm working on some guy's farm picking up roots and shit. And so we're making just enough. My brother ended up moving out of the apartment after like a month or two. Okay. So I had made some friends, and me and Tish were like, well, why don't we just move in? Because she was living in a bad situation. Okay. And she wanted to get out. She was graduating. She was a year older. So we're like, hey, let's just start our life.
Right. Best laid plans.
And the thing is, even though that happens all of the time, we found a lot of comfort in each other. The background she was coming from and the background I was coming from was like a powder keg, and she diffused that. That's and we had a really good relationship and had a lot of love for each other, but we were young. Right. And so stupid. Yeah. And we take so many things for granted. So we move in. A few years later we get married. Then I have a dream about a baby, and then we have a baby.
Really? Had a dream about a baby?
I had a dream about a baby. Wow. I didn't want any baby at all. And then I had a dream that I was laying on the floor throwing my future son up into the air, and he looked like me when I was a kid, and he was like laughing and giggling. My son Ronan Thor. Yeah. And I woke up, and I was like, Tish. I woke her up. She's like, what? I'm like, I want to have a baby. Oh my right gosh. Now. Like, I want to start. Like, I'm ready. And if you're ready, I'm ready.
And was she on board?
Yep. And the first time, actually, she got pregnant. Wow. Yep. And so had a baby, and I'm sure you can relate to this. That's when things really change.
Because you were at this point
21.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I wasn't really young, but
Right.
I mean, I was really young. You know, you're a kid till you're 25, basically.
Right.
And so now I started getting to that point where I was going, what now? I'm working at this job. I'm making decent money at McLeod. And I have this little budding fight team in my basement, which is fucking crazy in itself.
Right.
But that was when martial arts really started sinking in, was about the time my daughter was born. And that's when these guys got really, really serious. And they're like, well, I want to fight. And I'm like, well, shit, if you're going to fight, I got to have you ready. And so it happened kind of organically, but because I wasn't mature enough at the time, and I didn't know how to keep things in perspective, I expected my wife, Tish, to just find something to do, to have a hobby, and she wasn't in the same way as I was, like really, really interested in pursuing things, like pursuing passions or hobbies. She was really, really committed to raising the kids, but that's boring. Sorry, kids. It's boring as shit. When you're home for a year and you have to be with your kids, like the night out you get for date night should be a spa night. You should be sleeping, getting massaged. Exactly. Then you should have another day after that where you recoup and there's no noise.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what happened?
So your dreams were not her dreams.
What do you mean?
As far as you were getting into the martial arts stuff.
Correct.
And did she support this, or was she just kind of like, that's your thing and I'm just kind of over here?
She did support it. She wasn't a cheerleader for it. She if I was happy, she was happy for the most part. Good. But there did come a point in time, and I'm not going to knock her on this. We have a great relationship now, but we were young then. And there was a time when I had ran through brick walls over and over and over for the gym. Start a gym, fail. Start a gym, fail. Start a gym, fail. Or move, I guess. Right. Evolve is what I should say. And there was a time in the worst part of our relationship where I wasn't doing what I should have done on my side of the relationship, and neither was she, where she said, Keoni, if it hasn't happened by now, it's not going to happen. Give it up.
Yeah. Tough love.
Yeah. And I went, basically the inside of myself, whether it was my ego or whatever, said thick and thin. Yeah. And this is thin. Right. And that's that. And I've always had the mindset as long as I can remember that, you truly do only live once. And I don't have time to entertain somebody who doesn't believe in me. Right. Even if I'm a failure, to the bitter end, the bond and the commitment I'm making to you is forever. Right. And what we talked about, and we had a lot of great times, and we were just immature, but what we talked about is if we ever get to a point where it's toxic for our kids, that's when we're done. And we're just done.
That's a very mature decision.
I thought it was for the time, and it didn't feel like mature. Like that, the divorce was a nightmare. It was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. Not because of the bitter back and forth battle. Okay. That wasn't there. It was just emotionally. Failure? Yes.
Yep. Same for me.
Yeah.
Divorce for me was it needed to happen. But man, the failure that you feel, and then to have that feeling of this is what I wanted. This is never what I wanted, but this is what I want. And now I'm grieving this thing that I want that I never wanted. You know what I mean?
That I don't know that I don't want.
Right. Yeah. So, yep.
It's tough because you have all these plans in your head and you remember the good times. And when the person's absent, I don't know if you can relate to this, but when I got divorced, washing the dishes was weird. Going to the convenience store was weird. Falling asleep in a bed alone was weird.
Yes.
You're so habitually trained to pattern, like neurologically in tune with that person. When they're not there, it feels like half of you is gone. Yes. Even if you didn't get along.
Absolutely.
And that's where we got to.
Yeah.
So what went wrong with your marriage? I'll tell you all about mine. Was it a young love thing?
We Yeah. He was one of the only people that would pay attention to me. Remember, I was reaching out for attention and he paid me attention, and I thought he was a douchebag. You know, he was always hitting on me, and I thought he was cute, but I was like, that is not
Gotta bring more than that.
Yeah. But I needed the attention. So I went out with him and we always had a good time. We partied together, you know, lots of sex. Everybody knew if you don't see Kyle and Meghann, you know what they're doing. Just constantly.
Like bunnies.
Yeah. So, you know, when that's your basis for a relationship, and then
you hit the bottom at some point.
Yeah. And I very much, there were things, again, everybody's dealing with their own shit. He had his own shit, and I very much wanted to help him fix that. Then you learn you can't fix other people's shit. You can't make other people happy.
They got to do it.
Yeah.
They got to do it themselves. And sometimes, like what I found with my divorce was, it had to happen for me and for her to become who we would become.
Exactly.
Happy individuals. Yeah. And it's crazy how you get these two people that in this moment, they have these magical times. And this times where it's like they can convince themselves. They can go, oh yeah, we're going to, there is going to be a white picket fence and we're going to retire. But then there's like something in the very, very back of your mind and your soul that's like, no, you're not.
Right.
You know, there's something will happen. And I almost felt that from the beginning with Tish. And even though I had convinced myself 100% we're going to be together forever, no matter what, there was still a part of me at times of our relationship, even though we were even compatible, where I was like, no, there's somebody else. Yeah. There's something else. There's a category of people that now that I am in this place, I fit and align with better, and they're going to make me better and I'm going to make them better. But this is not going to happen. Right. This is going to make us worse. And when we identified that, you know, there's infidelity both ways. There's all kinds of, you know, just stupid shit.
Right.
And when I found out what I found out and I made my decision, I was just like, now I get to experience dating as an adult.
Oh my God. Hi, I'm 41 and I'm experiencing dating as an adult. No.
It's a disaster.
Yes, it is.
It's a disaster. I got onto some of these dating apps, and I was thinking, seriously, this is what.
And you were how old when you guys split?
30.
Okay.
So I'm like, hey, I'm 30. I got that going for me. But, you know, then I was going.
Line up, ladies.
Then I was going, okay,
30.
but I have children. And
just one at this point?
No, 2.
2.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't want to adopt other children per se because my lifestyle is now very specific in one direction. Yeah. But I also know that if I meet somebody 30, like I start realizing right away that the pool ain't that big.
Yes.
It's very small.
It is very small.
And so if the first thing I did is I do the first douchebag thing that I can do. Okay. I try to hook up with the youngest, hottest, dumbest girl that I possibly can. Yeah. I mean, why not, right? Wow. And it takes exactly one of them to make me go, oh shit. Yeah. Like I can't do this. Right. There's nothing here. There's no conversation. Yeah. She came over to my place one time. We had been seeing each other for like 2-3 weeks. And I was watching Capitalism, A Love Story by Michael Moore, which I wanted to see and I hadn't seen it yet. So I'm watching it. She goes, sits down, you know, it's Pop-Tart. What you watching? And I go, oh, it's Capitalism, A Love Story. It's a documentary about capitalism. Oh. Sits there and I'm like, well, fucking I ain't turning it. I'm watching it. And then like a few seconds go by and she goes, can we watch something else? And I'm like,
you gotta go.
I go, okay. And I turn the channel and then my inner rebel is just burning inside me. I'm like, you don't tell me what I'm going to watch. Right. And so I go, can I ask you a question? Why don't you want to watch, like she's sitting right here. Why don't you want to watch Capitalism, Love Story? Yeah. She goes, I'm just turning 20. I don't even need to know what capitalism is.
Oh, wow.
And I went, we're going to have a little talk. Literally, that's what I said. She's like, are you breaking up with me? And I'm like, yeah.
Over capitalism?
I'm like, yeah. You Nazi. You communist. But I was like, right then I was like, wow, okay, this isn't going to work. And hopeless.
Yeah.
Really hopeless and really kind of floating around and looking for like, you know, literal and figurative holes to fill. The holes in my mind, heart, and et cetera, et cetera. Yes. But there was no happiness there. There was no happiness there. And then I realized that the adult dating pool isn't that strong. And even worse, 10 years my younger, and even before that, maybe even I can't relate to them.
Right.
We come from a different time.
Yeah.
We come from a time where when we would fuck up at a party, or if you went to a party and fucked up, or you did something, you shit your pants or something.
That's a very specific example.
I didn't do it. Just to clarify. But my point is, everybody laughs about it for a year or 2 or 3, or maybe even they laugh about it in retrospect in 5 or 10. Now it's forever.
Yeah.
Now anything that you do, and people are intentionally screwing up, it seems, is out there in the ethos forever. And that's crazy to me. We are the last generation of Polaroid kids.
Yeah. It makes me feel really bad for them.
Yes, because I was thinking about this the other day. So it's probably about our age that starts taking over shit, taking over the world, taking over political office, so on and so forth. There's going to come a point in time where there's kind of a trade-off, and generationally, where now those people in 10 or 15 years are never going to really remember social media.
Right.
The life before social media.
Right.
What are your thoughts on social media? That's a podcast in itself, probably.
Yes, it is. I mean,
it's ruining us. It's ruining.
I do think it is.
Our culture and our society to a certain degree.
When Facebook first came out, I was like, no, for a very long time. And then my ex-sister-in-law just kept, she had a baby 6 months before one of my babies. And she always had all these cute pictures. And I'm like, where are all these pictures? And she's like, just make a Facebook account so you can see all these pictures I post. So I did. And there we are. And at first it was like, this is amazing. I can see, I'm, again, the youngest of 6. We're spread all over the place.
I can connect.
Yeah. Yep. I can see what people are up to. Old classmates, people that I might not otherwise talk to, that I'm like, hey, your life is actually really interesting. Like, I've got you from over here. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you can feel that connection with classmates or whatever, or whoever, where it's like, I know you're going through something and I know we're not close, but I got you, or whatever, or applause for you.
So I gotta touch on that point.
Okay.
Are we the last high school reunion generation?
Ooh, I don't think so. I have.
You know why I asked that question?
Because there's nothing to catch up on.
Right.
But au contraire, mon frère.
People are always looking for an excuse to drink.
That's true.
And make bad calls.
And I have a bone to pick with you because you missed our reunion. I was very upset, actually.
I'm sorry. I was actually pretty upset as well. But there's no excuse. There's no excuse.
Right. I knew there had to be a reason, because I'm like, you are right near where we are.
Yeah.
You're in town. There's no excuse. Julia came from Germany, for Christ's sake. Yeah. And you couldn't drive 5 minutes.
Damn, there's perspective. She came from Germany.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
But I was afraid of that. And it was a fantastic night. When you were talking about how, yes, people had their small groups, but we all meshed pretty well. That night was a perfect example. Everybody talked to everybody. Everybody had such a good time. It was nice.
Yeah.
It was just such a nice night. And I mean, alcohol aside, yes, I drank, but it wasn't like I needed to drink to be around these people. And yeah, we all see each other's shit, but it was like, hey, I saw that thing. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
You had some
whatever.
material.
Or I love listening to your stories about your kids, or congratulations on your business, or whatever. Like just
perspective,
legit support and care for one another.
We're still here, yeah.
Yep. Whether we spoke before and whether we're gonna ever speak again, it was just nice. So I hope we're not the last reunion generation, and if we have another reunion, Keoni Cook, will you be there?
I'll consider it. I'll be there. 100%. Firm. I'll be there because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and just thinking about Jeff. And I go onto that Class of 98 Facebook page every once in a while and just check out, because like Miss Krejci, I tried finding her a long time ago because I wanted to say, hey, you're the best teacher I've ever had. The way you taught me history, point A to point B, connect the dots, changed the way I saw the world and help shape the way I see the world. So I wanted to tell her that, and I was never able to track her down. But
it's amazing.
I'm starting to think about these memories now, like the lunch line I posted about the other day.
I saw that.
And Ryan, I think it was, said something about those wax cups full of cookie dough. And I was like, holy shit. I forgot all about those things, but I remember those being like the shit. All the girls, just all they could talk about all day was cookie dough.
Yep.
Those were such good times. And if we would have had social media, that would have been documented. So is there a slippery slope?
Absolutely.
Now that we have the capacity to record everything, and everybody is, my mom and I talked about this. At what point do you justify just living an experience and living in the moment?
Yeah.
Because if you record everything, you have to commit therein time to review said material.
Right.
And now that I'm 41 or going on 41, I don't got that kind of fucking time.
No.
You know, the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
More so than it was. I
think just in the last couple of years, I have seen a little bit of a shift. And I mean, let's face it, we're all trend followers.
Yeah, to some degree.
Yeah, whether you admit it or not.
Are some of us trendsetters? Is there trendsetters?
Some of us are trendsetters. Okay. Yeah,
there has to be somebody setting these damn things.
There has to be. But I mean, whether you follow that trend, you're a trend follower, or the people that are like, I'm not following that trend, they're following a trend too by not following the trend. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See, I think circles all the time.
But it's true. There are people that are. I used to think about this with like the goth kids and the metal kids. Oh, you're just such a conformist. You're fucking conforming. Right. You're conforming to your little group that makes you feel good. And I'm not belittling you, but let's not.
Neon green tomorrow, and then I'll tell you you're not a conformist.
Exactly. Like everybody in conformity is not necessarily inherently bad.
Right.
People look at it as bad because, you know, society sometimes can go the wrong way if people conform too much. But there's probably some survival mechanism behind it to make sure that you connect with people and you go, hey, I'm like you. If I lived right now, people don't get that concept. But if I lived 5,000 years ago, I might be like, hey, man, no, totally. I do that symbol too. Don't eat me. You know what I mean? That's probably where that shit comes from.
Right.
But people don't think about it.
Right.
And I don't think you can think about it. I think the reason maybe that it's easy to enjoy these high school reunions is because we've survived. And there's some of us that didn't make it. And when I saw somebody post the table of all of the people that weren't with us anymore, and I looked at that and I went, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
They're not here anymore.
Yeah.
And the one or two of them I knew about, but there were like three I had no idea. One of them was Chris McGuire. I was like a really good buddy of his in elementary school.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and it had been years. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was just like, how life gets away from you.
Absolutely.
You know? But that's kind of what, that's what's so intriguing for me about doing this podcast and catching up with people is I didn't talk to anybody. Like me and you messaged once or twice. I haven't really talked to anybody from high school since high school.
Is it because you don't wish to?
No. It's when I left, I felt like in that independence, I felt like I was being pulled somewhere in a certain direction. And it was crazy to me how, 5 years passed and then 10 years passed. And I was like, I was so completely tunnel visioned in martial arts. And there's been even people that have been part of my gyms for years. One of the big knocks on me probably will be that people think I only care about people that are around me or helping me in some way. And I could see the perception of that because
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I think some people do because I've had people train with me. And when you training is an intimate thing. Like when you're sweating and bleeding and all this stuff. I've had people train with me for years and then they stop training for whatever personal reasons, or they might have some issue with me personally or whatever the case may be. And I don't chase them. When I went to Belle Plaine, I made these really, really great friends, the Douglas brothers and this guy, Kurt Marble. And we had this little crew that ran around hunting for snakes, and it was just fucking nuts while I was still putting myself through Kirkwood's high school program. And these guys were like my best friends. And I got to this point in life where I was at, coming around 18, 19, where I was going, these are probably going to be friends of mine for the rest of my life. These are great friends. We've traveled together. We've done all this shit. And it was about the time that we got married and things just kind of started veering in different directions. And then before I knew it, it had been 5 or 6 years and I hadn't really talked to him at all.
Wow.
And that I think is one of the knocks, is that I feel like I'm really living in the moment. And I'm trying to attract people into this gym or into my life that have similar.
You seem like somebody who can appreciate such different perspectives. Like your conversation with your mom about the Baha'i faith, was very interesting to me. I love looking at everybody's different perspectives. Yeah. So that's where I see you, like, drawing in all these different types of people. But it sounds like you're trying to draw in very like-minded types of people.
If you go out in the gym and you see most martial arts studios, they have like flags, international flags, this country representing this and that.
Right.
And we just have this big 5-panel scape of Earth.
Okay.
And where I'm going now, I want to operate a little bit beyond what a coach would do. I don't want to just simply coach martial arts. I always want to do that, but I'm trying to attract a very, very diverse group of people into this gym, and of people that are interested in elevating their consciousness a little bit through physical training, through mental training, and all this type of stuff.
Right.
But when people come into the gym and they train, my philosophy is, for myself, I'm going to commit everything to what I'm doing, to whatever legacy I'm going to leave. I am not going to necessarily or unnecessarily chase people and beg them to come to this place.
Right.
So if you put in 2 or 3 years and you develop and you go, hey, jiu-jitsu or whatever just isn't my thing. And that happens sometimes. Sure. People sometimes come in, they call it the blue belt curse. And you spend 2 years on the mat and you do all this work and you get your blue belt and you're like, shit, all right, you're through the hardest part. And then they quit. And everybody's kind of, postulated on why this has happened. But really, I think what happens is in that 2 to 4 years, you realize how strong you are and how much you can accomplish. Right. And that's the only lesson you need.
Sure.
And some people want to go, okay, well, I've made it this far. I might as well be a black belt. I love these people. It's good fitness. But other people go, I just got a promotion. And that was what I really needed. I had a woman that came in one time and she was like, 100 pounds, tiny. And she, this body language, the meek, kind of like covering myself and insecure. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, she had a blue belt. She's chin up in the air. She's rocking shit.
Right.
She got a promotion at her job. She met a good man, not a fucking douchebag that she had been dealing with before. And she stopped coming to train. And she was the first person that made me look at it and go, it doesn't matter. Like, she's happy.
Yeah.
She found the strength that she needed to get to this place, and now she's happy. And so, like, if I can just see her every once in a while and say, hey, how's it going?
Right.
It's a win.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I'm so tunnel visioned into what I want to do, and I'm so intent on leaving a big legacy of some kind down the road, that if you move away, I just keep going.
Right.
I won't chase people down, and people are like, oh, you don't give a fuck about anybody. It's like, no, I really, I promise you, I do. but it's just not on a level that I can communicate to you by begging you to come train at the gym or do this or do that. Like, I feel like time is so precious that we have to find the most efficient ways to use it. And I think that would probably be the gripe on me, is that I'm kind of cold in that respect. But it's not that I don't think about these people. I think about them all the time. You know what I mean? There's times where, like, we had talked not all that much, but when I was thinking about going through a list of people I wanted to interview, I remembered, I was like, oh, I talked to Meghann. I want to get Meghann in here. Yeah. It's funny how you think about people like that. I think about people all the time, and I never talk to them. Right. You know, and that's just kind of part of my personality, I guess.
Well, that's human nature too. I mean, we all think about other people and, but don't reach out. Yeah. So again, social media.
Shit, social media is. Right. Hey, if you like my shit, will you like my shit? What? If I like your shit, will you like my shit?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. You got to do the like back.
Yeah. Not because you really,
or if you loved my comment, do I have to love your comment?
So many options. But it's a drug. Yeah. That leads to a serotonin boost in your brain. And then you return the favor of pseudo enjoyment.
But is it pseudo?
No. Yes, it is. It's phony as fuck. And this is why. I had a guy come over, works his ass off. And I'm walking out and getting in the truck. I'm like, hey, man, how's it going? He's good. Well, it's not going good. And I was like, oh, shit.
Now I gotta ask why.
So I stay there, and I talked to him for like 45 minutes. He's talking about, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about potentially getting a divorce. I'm thinking about, we have all these fights. She spends all this money, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to probably have to edit this out. But he's making all of these complaints and gripes. And then the very next day, I see her post. And I don't remember even how I saw it, but it said, I love you so much, honey. This last 3 years we've been married is so good. And I'm like, you're lying. Yeah. You're lying, and you're making somebody else somewhere else in a desperate situation think that they're in a situation that they're not in. This is not connection. Yeah. This is not familiarity. This is not us going, you know what? I can relate to you. Right. It's bullshit. Yeah. The unlarge, it's bullshit. And just as much as the bullshit is me going, hey, you like my stuff and I'll like your stuff, is the person that's a victim going, pay attention to me anyway. Exactly. Like, that's not the attention you want or need. I would rather have one human connection than 1,000 Facebook friends. Right. So when I'm not like on good terms with somebody anymore, it's crazy to me how people now have all kinds of friends that they don't like. Right. And I'm like, look, if I don't dislike very many people, but when I get on bad terms with somebody, on the rare occasions where, like, people have threatened me or that whatever the case may be, I'm not going to stay your friend on social media. Right.
You're not going to get that glimpse into
People are like,
my life.
They unfriended me. They're so petty. No, I'm just not your friend. Right. I don't want to have any kind of your juju coming my way.
My rule is always, if we wouldn't at least give the sup nod, if we, crossed each other's paths in real life, then why do we need to be each other's friends on social media?
Walks by Meghann, waits for a nod, doesn't get it, fine, fuck it.
Unfriend.
But I do this. I get friend requests from people that random. I'm sure everybody gets random friend requests from people. Yeah. I know you through this and this and this person. Right. Except, because I have a business, go right to their profile, unfollow, move. And I've been doing that for 2 or 3 years now. So I don't see my feed change anymore. And I have a lot of my friends who are like, I'm getting rid of social media and this and that. And I'm like, well, you can get huffy puffy about it every week and about how you see this person's stupid shit, but there actually are measures on there for you to put the brakes on seeing unnecessary information. And if you do it, what I found was when I did that, my feed slowed down and I realized how much I checked it.
You're right.
And then I stopped checking it as much.
Yeah.
But it's still,
that's where I'm at right now.
It'll still pull you in.
Yeah.
And I used to do the whole political thing.
Yes, you did. Hard. Real hard.
What do you remember about that?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Coners went hard in there. Well, I won't comment on it.
Okay.
But what did you think about that period?
Let's hang on one second, because we were talking about reunions. And I think, now I just lost my train of thought.
Our reunion or reunions in general and how they might be dying.
Yeah.
Like we might be the last.
That's living in the moment. We were talking about living in the moment. Mm-hmm. That's a trend now. You know,
mindfulness.
I'm gonna, you know, cut off all electronics. I'm spending the weekend with my family. See you guys in a couple days, whatever. And people are like, "Oh, bravo." You know, can't wait to hear about it.
That's so interesting. You're right.
Yeah.
And now it's like a virtue signaling thing. Oh, I'm cutting off my data because I read Bill Gates does it. Bill Gates doesn't give a fuck about it. Yeah. No, I've seen that. Virtue signaling. Mm-hmm. Virtue signaling. That's a term that I've come to be very familiar with. While we're here and we haven't talked, let's not get political. It's sad. It's sad that this is political. That the virus is political. Mm-hmm. It is.
Yes.
And that's not good at all. No. When health becomes a political divisive issue where I can go, you're being an asshole about wearing a mask. You're a Republican. Mm-hmm. You're being an asshole about not wearing a mask. You're a Democrat. Mm-hmm. When I can see it polarized so clearly, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the pandemic?
I hate this.
I know. Good.
I work at a doctor's office, so I deal with it every day. And
is it different? Is what you're seeing now with COVID, is it different in terms, we know it's different in terms of veracity, right? Mm-hmm. Like the way it affects the lungs specifically.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the intensity of this virus is worse than what we would normally see in a really bad flu season in terms of like just the amount of patients in the door?
I am not a medical professional.
I'm not saying you are, and I'm not holding you to anything. I'm just thinking like, I don't hear about the flu anymore.
Exactly.
And in the beginning, the flu was cited as like, hey, this doesn't kill that many more people than the flu. And people took that. And then other people went, you don't care about the 0.01%. You want your grandma to die and all this shit.
Right.
But I don't hear about the flu.
You don't hear about the flu. It's all about this. And
fear?
Fear. I think so. I mean, yes, people are getting sick. We've had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, at least 3 people in our office got it. But I mean, they're all well, alive and well. So I know it's real, but shit's just blowing up, man.
It's the response. For me, it's not the virus. It's not the presumption of a threat.
Right.
It's the sensationalist response of media going, batten up the hatches. And this, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to be really objective. And I think most people would look at me and think that I lean conservative, which is weird because the House was not conservative. Maybe I'm rebelling against the liberal House. But, you know, I've really kind of swung back and forth and voted, I feel like, with neutrality, not thinking about parties at all.
Yeah, that's how I do as well.
But the parties are still there. The polarity is still there. The divisiveness is still there. But with this virus, I'm waiting for bodies to line the streets with the way that they're reporting it. Mm-hmm. With the way that they're reporting it, I'm expecting, oh man, this is going to be really bad. And then they start saying, hey, we're going to flatten the curve. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a medical professional, but I feel like I have a base foundation idea of how viruses work.
Right.
And I'm going, this is not going to flatten anything. It's going to elongate a curve. Mm-hmm. But people are going to have to get sick. They're going to have to, like, well, we're going to wait and we want to flatten the curve so we can develop this vaccine. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, you can't really develop the vaccine in 12 months and have it be safe because it might clot somebody's blood up and kill them right on the spot. Mm-hmm. It seems like the media now, and I always talk to people about this, and I don't think this is getting political, but did you notice a difference in this country? I don't know if you're paying attention to the news really hard at the time, but 9/11, do you remember, can you trace back now and kind of go, that's where this country started going south?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not alone in that respect.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I like watching documentaries, and I like looking at things from all points of view. So
What is a conspiracy theorist? And why do you say it like that? I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything. Because when
people hear that I've watched things like how 9/11 wasn't really an attack and it was
false flag, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. You see like the video of the building exploding before it fell down. Mm-hmm. You know, you see floor by floor little explosions, and people are like, oh my gosh, you're watching conspiracy theories. And
why do they do that?
I don't know. They want to,
because they're afraid that you're right. Because they don't want to deal with the potential. Like, yeah. And I don't think that there was a controlled demolition there. But I don't think we were told everything about that event.
Right. And
in fact, I don't need to think it. I know it because they admitted it later that they didn't tell us everything about that mm-hmm. attack. But what I know is the way that even if there were Americans on board plotting this terror attack, take all that stuff, set it aside. Mm-hmm. What happened after 9/11 bred a culture of fear mm-hmm. within the United States, of the great big terror, of any Middle Eastern yep. people. Yep. I don't feel like we've ever recovered from that. When I was a kid, when we were kids, I was like, yeah, racism is still a thing.
Sure.
But it's like getting way better. Like, it's not nearly as bad as it was before. Like, you know, everybody's like listening to hip hop, and like our culture is progressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What the fuck is going on around here?
Yeah.
Race at an all-time high. I'm like, people, you are being herded.
Yeah.
And divided. And it's so obvious, and you're thinking with emotion so much you can't see it. But like when I look at CNN or Fox, just look at them now. It's so easy to see.
Yeah.
Oh, you're pandering to the right, you're pandering to the left. And both of you guys on both sides know the truth is somewhere in between. You're fucking cowards.
Yeah.
You've been drummed into this like fear-based thing where there's always the Y2K. Mm-hmm. The war on terror. Oh, the war on terror will never end, but you're always going to have to pay for it. And it's like, I feel like the 80s kicked ass. The 90s were awesome. Mm-hmm. 2000? What, baby? Millennium, kids? We get to live through a millennium, then 9/11.
Yeah. Right.
And you can't even question the narrative. Mm-hmm. You have a knowingly corrupt government for decades and centuries, arguably the whole time. They've been corrupt ever since they've been enslaving people.
Yeah.
And you doubt that narrative, and people look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah.
And I think it's because people know that maybe there wasn't a controlled demolition at 9/11, mm-hmm. but people don't even want to entertain the idea because they know that usually the way this thing works is some heinous shit is happening. Mm-hmm. Like they infect the Tuskegee Airmen with syphilis, and then everybody dies that approved this shit. Mm-hmm. And then after they dive 20 years later, they release these documents and go, oh, we're declassifying. Turns out the people that controlled stuff back in the day are huge pieces of shit. And everybody goes, well, it's a good thing that wouldn't happen again. And it happens again.
Right.
And again and again.
Cyclical.
There needs to be some kind of like transcendent shift where people go, maybe we should doubt our oppressors.
Right.
You know?
But what's, just like your question to me with sexual abuse, what's the fix? I mean, can you imagine if it'd be great to say, let's just and start from ground zero, pardon the pun. And
damn, 9/11 puns hitting hard. Ground zero. Ouch. We can laugh now, right? Like whenever anybody talks about 9/11 jokes, I'm like, dude, that ain't funny. There's nothing funny that's but there has to be. Like you have to at some point let things go.
Right.
Of course.
Right. Like how would you even fix that? Where would you start? Because people are not all of the same mindset and are not going to come together like we wish they would and say, here's what we all want. I mean, that's what we elect leaders for, is because we say, here's what we all want, and this person represents that. We'd just be repeating our past.
But don't you think that there's a commonality in human beings?
Do those human beings want to recognize it?
That's the spiritual question, probably.
They don't. Not everybody does.
I think everybody can feel spiritual truth, and I think that spiritual truth is love, and I think that's universal. I really believe, with all of my heart, that if 51% of this planet, 51% exactly, was in love or on fire with the idea of loving their fellow man, world peace would come instantaneous. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I think what holds us back from that heaven on earth is the idea that it could not happen because it has not happened yet.
Yeah.
Our own thoughts.
Absolutely.
Our own, reservations. So love is how you do it. And you die maybe before you see it. Right. But you do it anyway because that's what seeds. If we look at to all the great leaders in history that are revered, most of them are revered for a few reasons. They're advocates of radical love or freedom, and I think that liberty and love are almost synonymous with each other. If you really, really love somebody, a stranger, you'll let them be free. Right. You'll let them be liberated, and the same applies to them. So I don't think. When I look at liberty, I kind of tie liberty to love. And when I think about how important liberty is supposed to be and claimed to be important in this country and how much we actually back up that liberty with love for our fellow man, it doesn't match up. It's just bullshit. It's rhetoric. It's feel good talk.
Right.
Nobody's ever, there's never been a time in our country ever in its history since day one, since it was before it was founded, where people weren't being persecuted, from the natives to the Dominicans to everybody. So love is the answer, but it's hard to find online. It's not as popular as hate sometimes.
Right.
And when we were young, if you were a piece of shit and you wanted to spew hate and ignorance and bigotry out there, you were really putting yourself out there for the world to see physically. Now you can just get an anonymous thing online and go tag up and meet up with fellow pieces of shit very easily. So it's, I'm sure that the internet has helped us in a lot of ways, but if I look back and go, did it further society? Did it further mankind at the rate that would kind of justify its own growth or go hand? I don't know.
It may in some cases.
Got to catch up maybe.
Yeah. People who don't have diverse social circles may see something that they're like, actually, true. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But it's few and far between.
It is. And I've changed people's minds on this topic or that, but it was very difficult, took a long time, and I had to bite my tongue in so many cases. And then I started going eventually, because I'm thinking about jujitsu and efficiency and being a martial artist. I'm going, I could do this for years and change a few people's minds. But if I sit down with these people face to face, we'll find commonality in like 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
The guise of connection online is actually, I feel like it's detracting from our opportunities now more than ever to interpersonally connect with people.
Absolutely.
And I see that when I got out into the dating pool, I saw that people were like, this one girl that I hooked up with is horrible. But this girl that I hooked up with, I knew just through an acquaintance, and she made it very obviously that she wanted to hook up with me. The first time I ever talked to her on the phone was when she showed up to hook up with me.
Okay.
It was all text messages.
Yeah.
And then I got a call. Hi, I don't know where to park. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is adult life. No. But that's when I started getting in tune with the idea that communication culturally was changing. Now people aren't communicating. They're like sending photos and text, and the text is has no voice inflection. It's being misread.
Right.
Divorce is now a huge part of divorce is Facebook, infidelity, options.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It is nuts.
So it's a wash. And I think because we're slow to evolve, and maybe because the machines are evolving so fast that we're either going to have to catch up. Or do you read much? Have you ever read Ray Kurzweil or heard of him?
No.
He's the head of Google AI.
Okay.
And he believes that in the very near future, in the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to hit an event called the singularity.
Okay.
When the singularity happens, machine computation is going to overtake human computation.
This is my fear.
Yeah.
Ex machina.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And
are you a robot right now?
Start glitching and shit. I knew it. Cold son of a bitch. No, that's one of my favorite movies. It's terrifying.
But
enthralling at the same time,
because it just
ever since I watched
so
Terminator, when I was a kid, I was like, this is plausible. This is kind of the direction we're going. Now we're completely technologically intertwined in banking, military, everything.
Yeah.
So he thinks that when this event takes place, we're either going to become subservient to machines, or we are going to merge with machines. And in terms of like logic and plausibility, that's the way I see that thing going. And I don't think it's optional. Yeah. It's spooky. It's really spooky, but.
And does he see this as a happy marrying?
Yes.
Of the two?
Yes. Okay. He sees the medical possibilities of having nanobots, smart bots in your body killing cancer as it's being, born.
Inner space?
Like inner space.
Dennis
yes.
Quaid. Yes.
Shout out to Dennis Quaid. That's awesome. That's
my son calls the generic Harrison Ford, by the way.
Sorry, Quaid. Harrison Ford's top of my list, though. He really is. But he thinks it's going to be good. And the thing is with him, he's driven by his father. He's driven by the memory of his father. And he has this huge, giant collection. And I'm talking giant collection of his father's writings and his life's work. And he wants to, or one of his kind of fantasy ideas is putting all of this into a computer and recreating a simulation of his father. And so... Look, that's the darkest side.
I just got nauseous.
But this is probably coming from trauma.
Right.
This is probably coming from losing a huge influential person in his life.
Do not watch this. I have only seen 2 episodes of this show, but have you watched The Black Mirror?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the one where her boyfriend, like she ordered her boyfriend, he died, or husband or something, he died. And they recreated him. I mean, down to the mole on his shoulder. It was him.
Yeah.
But the memory wasn't there. The connection wasn't there.
Right.
Oh.
All of the things that made him
my
him.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
And that just haunts me.
Struck a chord.
Oh my gosh.
We haven't talked about that. Let's talk about that, because I don't know anything about this circumstance, but I want to say that I know it happened, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
So this had to be something that shaped you. This had to be something that like changed the way. So
probably more than anything, both the relationship and his death have shaped me.
How'd the relationship?
That feeling of needing to be seen and heard that came from childhood. He just, I always say he made me feel like the most cherished person on the face of the planet, and not in a selfish, like it's all about me thing. Just like this person truly loves me. When they say they love me, I actually believe it. And that was terrifying and so freeing at the same time. We just fit. He wasn't a perfect person. I'm not a perfect person, but just that level of understanding and love and trust and care and just connection was so comforting, but it was never complacent. We were always pushing each other to learn and grow, do better, be better. And it was fantastic. And coming out of a marriage where I wasn't supported, my dreams were never able to be realized. And he was like, you can do anything. I mean, and he was so proud to be with me, and it was just fantastic.
Is love like that? Is that the greatest gift that we have?
I think so. But when you lose that, it's also a huge curse, because now I'm 41 and, you know, I was single for a long time after he died. I couldn't even imagine being with somebody else. But I eventually came to a place where it was just gratitude that he at least showed me that that was possible. But now I mean, how do you expect somebody else to live up to that? And it's not that I do. I'm not expecting to recreate that with somebody else. But when you have the prime rib and then you're fed hot dogs, wiener pun.
Tinder's full of them hot dogs, isn't it?
It's a rough place to be, and it can get me in some really dark places sometimes.
Yeah.
So
do you think that how did he pass away?
Motorcycle accident.
Mm-hmm. So it was a sudden thing.
It was. Yeah.
The years to follow, whenever you lose somebody really important, it's almost like your sense of time is warped.
Yes.
Where you're in a cloud.
Absolutely.
For an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you mentioned your age. You're like, I'm 41 now. How does that play in for you? Like, why is that a concern?
It's not really a concern. It's just, you know, you feel the time ticking. And do I need somebody in my life? No, but I do crave connection.
Sure.
You know, I crave companionship. I crave teamwork. I love those going to the convenience store, doing the dishes, you know. When we were together, we were so together. We cooked together, cleaned together, you know, napped together. And I never, being a teen mom, I never went through that whole dating phase. So I'm having to learn what you guys learned at 18, 19, 20, at 41. And it's just like, I'm always texting my friends and, you know, talking to my coworkers, like, I don't know what to do. He said this, and I don't know what that means. Like,
what are these emojis? I don't know what the fuck's going on. That's what I'm like. I don't know.
He wants me to cook him zucchini for dinner. What?
He doesn't know me, apparently. Don't you think, though, that you're better poised now that you're the age that you are to find somebody that you can ride off into the sunset with and potentially, like, you'll recognize when you see something like that again or feel something like that again? Ish. Well, it'll never be the same.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like, it'll never be the same, and that's not something that me and my wife talk about this all the time. Like, hey, not all the time, but, you know, if I die, I want you to, if you want, to move on. Yeah. Like, I want you to be happy.
See, that's what fucked me up. We had that conversation, and I absolutely said that to him. He said he would be heartbroken if he knew that I moved on. And that sticks with me. I know it sounds fucked up, but it's like, and people say, he didn't know what he was saying at the time.
How old were you?
Blah, blah. When he died?
Yeah. Were you the same age, first of all? Like, relatively, or?
Yeah, he was one of our classmates.
Oh. Who?
Yeah, Chad Jolson.
Okay.
Yep. So, we were 37. Yeah,
okay, so
2017. Yep.
So you're an adult and grown up. So that's still pretty fresh then. That's not like
still pretty fresh, yeah.
Yeah. You'll never find anything like that. Like, there's probably always going to be times. And this is what I found with grief and with grieving, is that the initial shock, you know, it shocks you for weeks.
Yeah.
Where you're just
months.
And I liken it to, like, at first it's this massive traumatic peak, right? And then there's this regression of acceptance. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to get back to doing the dishes. I'm going to get back to doing the convenience store runs by myself. I'm going to get back to this. And, like, okay, I did it. I made it through. And then boom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Out of nowhere. You remember. And you remembered before. But something that triggered in your mind, like my dad, when I want to call him. And then I'm like, he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And it just takes your breath away.
It
and
does.
You think it's going to go it's like ripples in a pool, right? Where at first the peaks are big and strong, and then they get further out, and they get further out, just enough further out that you think you're past it, and then it comes back again. And that's just what a blessing that is, because it teaches us how important you knew. You knew how important. We
never took it for granted.
What an amazing opportunity that is, because perspective is everything, and there are people out there that we can recognize that never find that. They never ever get that. They never experience it. They're stuck in a relationship that they hate for years and years and years, or they just never find the connection, or the people that they are don't allow them to connect that way.
Right.
So just to have an experience like that is beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing that you can ask out of life, I think. But we live generally now a long time. So you may find somebody tomorrow and just go, okay. But I've always wondered, and I've been curious about that, because the only thing worse, I think, than losing somebody that close to you is losing a child. And I couldn't imagine losing my significant other, but my children, and Mama Bear know this. Inconceivable. I don't know how I could even
go on.
Operate. So what have you learned from 17 years old to now? And if you had 3 little bits of advice that you could give to a 17-year-old you who is out there, who may just listen to this someday down the road, what would be your best advice?
Know your worth. I know that sounds really cliche, but
it's true.
It is true. You have to know when to say no. No is not a bad thing. Let people in. People, not everybody wants to help you, but some of the tying it back to social media, actually, social media did help me during that time, because classmates reached out. I would actually say I gained more comfort from people that I had never spoken to before than I did people that are very close to me during that time.
Interesting.
Because some of them had experienced the same thing. We have another classmate that lost her husband, and her support and her words, and just like hearing what was going on in my head coming out of her mouth, it was like, okay, I'm not on an island. Other people have experienced this, because you'd very much feel like I'm the only person in the whole history of the world that has ever felt this way. Fuck everybody. Nobody understands where I'm coming from. They're never going to understand. They don't know what our connection was.
Right.
They do. Loss is loss. Loss is horrible. And let those people in, because it helps. No, they might not understand, every tiny detail, but
you need them. You need people. Like, people need people. They
very much.
And like now, when the kid I was before was like, fuck people. What I was driven because I wanted connection I didn't have. And everybody needs human connection. You'll literally go crazy. So when you get something as strong as you had, like, your soul recognizes it, so well, that's 2.
God.
I know it's late. You're tired as hell.
No.
Know your worth.
Learn forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Forgive people who have done wrong to you. Learn from it. Grow from it. Don't shrivel up and, oh, this and that happened to me. That, I totally agree with you. Those things totally shaped who I am. And that's one thing Chad loved about me, is I'm not gonna sit down and say, poor me. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna soldier on and fight through it. And so, I mean, I went back to work. He died on a Wednesday, and I was back at work on Friday, and my boss was like,
you need to go home.
What are you doing? And I said, no, this is He loved how strong I was. There's shit I need to do. Staying at home and crying in bed isn't going to bring him back. I may be crying at my desk, but I'm here and I'm going to fucking fight through it. So,
you know, you commented how he told you that he'd be heartbroken. Do you think if he knew how much pain you went through, he would change his mind?
I think so. And I'm very in tune. Like, do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in
I don't.
Okay.
I do believe in energy though, and I don't think they have to be different.
Okay.
I really do think that scientifically, I believe that there's spectrums and energy and things we can't see. So
right.
I know what I know, and I don't necessarily believe in ghosts because I had a ghost hunting experience that was comical. We'll talk about that some other time. But I do think there's more.
Yeah.
I do.
I very much have felt multiple times him speaking to me. It's strange. It's not always words. It's a sensation. And I just...
Intuition, kind of, yeah.
Right. I just know it's from him without even thinking about it. There have been some things that have happened that I think he's talking to me and he's telling me it's okay. So, and maybe that's just coming from some crazy part in my head that says, you need to move the fuck on, sister.
Well, I've thought about this since my dad passed away too. Same type of thing you're talking about. And the way I see it, the evidence that I have on the afterlife right now is the real big questions with afterlife is like consciousness. Does consciousness end or does it go on? I'm a firm believer that the ego is the thing that makes it very hard for people to let go of an idea that their consciousness just might come to an end. But energy doesn't really come to an end.
Right.
And if, let's say the worst case scenario, in the mortality handbook, here's the worst case scenario. You're just gone.
You're right.
That's all that happens. That's not really all that happens. What happens is your body is returned to this atomic or molecular state that was born inside of stars billions of years ago, if you believe in that type of thing, which is amazing, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
like if creation is the thing, that's amazing. But if evolution is the thing, that's amazing too. They could both be amazing. They're probably both the same shit.
Yeah.
But now I'm fucking thinking about something else. Energy.
Yes.
Let's say that I die tomorrow, and then my body just starts to, fizzle away into the ground, become the quote unquote worm food. Well, the things that I did in life are very much like this ripple as well. And they echo through the ages in the thoughts, the literal electric impulses in the brain of this living person and their actions in the way that they push forward. So that's what I know. There might be quite a bit more, and that's very intriguing to me, and that's what I want to look at. But that's what I know, that is an afterlife. My dad is still living through me.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's still living through my brother. He's still living through everybody that remembers him, that holds the door open for people.
Right.
That is still happening. I'm still tying my shoes when I tie my shoes. I minimize that step. The way that my grandmother told me to tie my shoes when I was like 6.
Right.
Those things continue to go through. The question is consciousness. And with my dad, I talk to him all the time. But I'm consciously going, am I talking to your ghost here? Is your ghost really here? Yep. Or are you so much inside of me that you are literally speaking through me? I don't think it matters.
Yeah. I have, same exact thing.
Like you guys, your, let's call it, we'll get 20-something yoga's chick and call it soul frequencies. Your soul frequencies were such that you recognized each other and spent so much time together and connected in such a way that you can ask him a question and you can get an answer.
Right.
And that's amazing.
Right.
That if you strip away the ego and the question of consciousness and you just are left with that, that in itself is an incredible gift.
Right.
So
I have that same, I've been thinking about that a lot with religion. When you're praying, when you're asking someone for guidance, are you really just asking yourself? You know the answer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can seek it out within yourself, but are you really asking this being out there? Or are you really just taking a really deep look inside of yourself? Yeah. Have you ever heard of kinesiology?
Yeah.
Okay. My mom, this is ridiculous, but it has...
I love ridiculous stuff.
My mom and I actually used to work together.
Okay.
And she would start if I had a question. Should I do this? Should I do this? She'd write each scenario on a piece of paper, crumple them up, mix them up, and she'd have them hold me to my heart. And I'm not shitting you. Sometimes nothing would happen, but sometimes you would get a strong pull forward, or sometimes it would push you back. And whichever one pulls you forward, open that up. And it was like where do you want to eat? Guess where I'm taking you to eat? It was the one that I wanted. So it's like, and I wouldn't know, of course, which paper was which. Mm-hmm. So that just kind of feeds my idea that we know, we just have to look inside. Yes, it helps to talk to other people, or, ask people who have different experiences or a higher understanding or whatnot. But when we're talking to our dad or God or whoever it is that you're seeking out an answer from, are you really just bringing them inside of you and seeking it out from yourself?
Well, and you hear this in religion a lot, that God is everywhere, God is everything, God's inside you. Well, if that's the case, and this reality is God in material form, we should be able to communicate that energy freely at any point in time. And when people sit down and pray, that they've done studies to suggest that this works. Nobody can explain why it works, but they have explained placebos. They've explained the incredible power of our own mind to such a degree that pharmaceuticals don't even really seem like a legit option. Like your brain, if you just, this is something that I talk to people about in martial arts all the time. Probably the biggest hurdle, the biggest obstacle, physical or ideological, that you have to get through is believing. That's the hardest thing. For me, believing that I could get to a place where I could make all this as a high school dropout with no college education. That was the hardest part. Getting past the kid that was like military, dead, prison. Once you do that and you actually work towards something, you see that as long as you believe in something, really believe in something, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. And I think that with faith, when you have somebody praying and they really believe, like in their heart of hearts, they believe that they're praying to the big guy up in the sky, and he's like, yes, I will grant these wishes. It has an effect on them, and it has a positive effect. And for what it's worth, the people that I know of great faith live very, very happy lives, and they're good people. Generally speaking, there's pockets of extremism everywhere, but faith, having the power of faith / hope / belief, what's more powerful than that? I mean, love, that's about it, know, and like I said, I think they kind of go hand in hand, but it's nice to know that regardless of whether my dad is a floating entity or spirit, his energy still trucking. It's still it's potentially even stronger now than it was, because it's motivated. Like right when he passed away, I was like, okay, thrusters now. Like I'm putting it on hard. And probably losing somebody that you were so close with probably put your life into perspective too, and went, I know what I'm worth. I know what I'm going to demand. I'm not going to ever settle for anything other than somebody that can try to hold a candle to this man.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's
his death was my blue belt. I switched jobs, got a promotion, making twice as much as I did before, finally able to provide for my kids without assistance,
Do you think that was like, if I can get, it was kind of a realization to yourself, if I can get through this, I can do anything. Absolutely. Like this is going to be one of the biggest hurdles of my life. And if I can get past it, then I'll be a champion for us. Yeah.
Plus, just knowing that, there's things in my day that I'll get through, and I'll get in the car after work and I can just see him smiling, like, you fucking badass.
Yeah. Doing it.
Yep. So
that's what's up.
I'm doing it for me, but I'm doing it for him too.
Yeah.
So
tell me about your kids.
Oh,
I know.
gosh.
I know. Just give me a rundown because I don't know any of them. I haven't met them, so I want to.
So Zeke is going to be 23 this year.
Okay.
Artist, very introverted, very quiet.
My kind of guy.
Don't see him much. He's just in his art, and
I get it.
Yep.
I totally get it.
Madeline just turned 21.
I saw you post a picture. Yeah.
Yep. She lives in Iowa City, and is kind of figuring out what she wants to do with her life. Aiden is graduating this year. He big into theater and really thinks he wants to teach. He just has a really big heart for kids.
No. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Jeez. We need more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finn is 15, and he's, right smack dab in the middle, 3 older, 3 younger. So he's had it rough, He went through a period where he wasn't big enough to hang with the big kids, and he was too old for the younger kids. So
loner.
He's the funny man. I mean, he uses comedy.
Okay.
And he's an old soul. Like, he just went out and bought a Beach Boys record, and he is jazzed about
Name
it.
dropping. Beach Boys. Legends.
Yeah.
Some people now would be like, who are they?
Right. No. Rolling Stones.
Oh, good.
He just loves older stuff like that. Then Penelope, we call her Pip, is 13, sassy. She is me. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look out. So karmic
Ooh.
children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And, where that would cause this with me and my mom, with her and I mean, it causes this, but we're both very conscious of it and discuss it. And
excellent.
I always tell her that she is the child that has made me learn and grow the most about myself.
Oh, okay.
I've learned lessons from each of my kids about myself, and she pushes me because the way she deals with trauma or whatever it may be is a big old mirror reflecting right back on me. And
this is your own medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pip is your own medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we've got Ruby, who is 11, and she is my Sour Patch Kid. She's the most loving kid ever. Cannot wake up or go to sleep without a hug from mom. Mom's not a hugger.
Oh, really? I didn't notice earlier this evening. Yes.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, we're 22 years. We're going to do this now." Okay. Fine. Thanks, Keoni. Now I have a pounding headache. No, I'm getting
I'll see you later. Yeah. But she has a lot of anger, and a lot of that is from Chad's passing.
Oh, yeah.
The kids got very close with him and really saw him as a father figure. So, but she's figuring it out. She's a smart.
How old is she now? 11.
11.
So that would have been 4 or 5. She would have been how old?
She
7?
was in first or second grade.
That's tough.
When it happened. Yeah.
That's the first big one.
And then she's just kind of gaining her footing from the divorce. And
right.
then, and it happened on the first day of school.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So she's had a rough go of it, but she is my kid. You hear people say, like, my kid's either going to be the leader of the gang in the prison or the CEO.
Yeah.
That's Ruby. I can't even imagine the great things.
She'd be a tough cookie.
Yeah. And then Liam's the baby. He's just chill and sweet.
Drinking it in. How old is he?
He is 9.
Okay.
And he gets bossed around by his sisters all the time, and he just takes it. He's just like, whatever. So
that's a lot of babies.
That's a lot.
How do you do it?
I don't know. When I see other people doing it, I'm like, oh my God. If I see a lady with like stair step kids, out in public, the fuck are you thinking?
That's what my mom said. She said stair-step children. And I literally, I'm not shitting you, I've never heard that before in my life.
Really?
So I'm like, what is that? And she tells me, and I hear this the very next podcast. It's so weird.
That's funny.
So where do you want to see yourself in 5, let's say 10 years, actually, when we're 50, 51? What's life look like for you?
God, 51.
It's nuts, isn't it?
It is.
It really is crazy. But you look really great for 41. You. Like, I think we're doing okay.
We're doing man.
All right. Like, I should have went to the reunion and just been like, doing okay.
Just wanted to show this for a minute.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to think about that. I used to think, I don't want to go to a high school reunion because I'm going to be the loser.
Oh, really?
Like, I really thought that.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that type of thing was almost a sense of dread even then. So then when I found martial arts and I gained my confidence, then it became like in my late 20s, I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking shit up now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't wait to brag about my life, but there's nothing to brag about.
Yeah.
It's the same life as everybody else. And it's the same trauma. It's the same interpersonal bullshit that everybody else has to deal with. And one of the best things I've got out of martial arts is just health. Yeah. It's just staying healthy and staying, having longevity, and that's it. But I think you said it best. Everybody's going through their own shit.
Absolutely.
And it's good to remember that. And that's part of the reason I want to do this podcast. But I was really interested because I haven't spoken to anybody from Jefferson High to any effect. I've ran into people here and there through life that happens. But to go from like, this is my life to now it's something completely different. I was interested to see what people thought about me. And that's when I asked you that and you said that. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah. You're not surprised by my answer.
I'm not surprised and not proud of it either. Back then that was the only outlet that I have to, to protect myself from what I was scared of. But I'm glad I'm not that person anymore.
That's another reason I liked the reunion. I mean, we all have these memories or thoughts of our fellow classmates. And when you see someone in high school that's struggling and you see them now, there are so many, I'm not going to drop names, but there are so many guys from our class that I'm like, what a douche. And now they're like amazing fathers and really successful. And I'm like legitimately proud, not as if they were my own kid, but there's just this like, wow.
Well, it's positive to see that. It's like to have these preconceived notions and go, oh, that how this is going to probably end up. And then it doesn't. It's like you chose your way up the right ladder. Right. That's inspiring. And it's nice to get there, I suppose. I wouldn't know because I wasn't there. But it would be nice to get there and see people doing well and happy and positive and happy to see you, you know, because it seems like a lifetime ago. I mean, for me, it feels like literally a lifetime ago because there was such a huge disconnect. But, the people that I have ran into and talked to, just like that. Yeah. Pick it up.
When you run into somebody from back then, does it take you back to who you were then? Do you feel any sort of, not reversion, but...
I have a story for you.
Okay, please.
I went to a gun show recently at Hawkeye Downs, perusing. Way back in the day, I had a thing for this girl named Shauna Hickey.
Oh, yeah.
And
get in line.
Yeah, no shit. She was popular. And we were just friends, right? Like we were just classmates, but I had a thing for her and everybody else at one point in time. Right. But when had a thing for her, she was dating a guy named Adam Harris.
Oh yeah.
And and I thought Adam Harris was a complete fuck bag. You know what I mean? Like, just didn't have very good interactions, but didn't have very many interactions with him either. Just the ones I had weren't great. And one of them was coming around a corner at must have been Roosevelt. Okay. And right when I get around the corner, I'm like looking over my shoulder, and I get around the corner, and he's right there, and he boom pushes me over, like levels me, takes me from feet to back. Yeah. And I get up, with the pushing war begins and everybody jumps in and all of his friends jump in. And it was some shit about Shauna. I was like, heard you're talking to my fucking girl. You got a thing for my girl or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I do, but fuck off. Nothing ever came of it. But I was like, at that point in time, I was so insecure about so many things in myself that it filled me with a rage. And I was like, Adam, somewhere down the road, I'm going to run into you. And when I run into you, I'm going to fuck your ass up bad.
Wow.
Like when I have power over you, like I was just, to hear myself say it's so unstable.
Right.
Like just lucky I got through this phase of my life.
Right.
But I held on to that for a long time.
Wow.
Like, and I held on to gripes. Like when I had infidelity in my wife and I found out the guy that she was with, like, I'm not proud of this, but years after the fact, I messaged him and I said, I'm still watching you.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was so, like, I was just not always been the person I am right now.
Right.
Well, I thought that same thing about Adam. And I'm like, if I ever run into you in the future again, knowing what I know now, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up. I went through divorce. I lost my dad. Things changed. And he requested me on Facebook. I was like, well, this is interesting. Thought you were pissed off about Shauna, bro. So anyways, I don't really say anything. I do the same thing I do with everybody else. I just kind of like throw it in there. And I'm walking around this gun show and everybody has masks on. It's like the most weird thing in itself. But the guy goes, Keoni. And I look over and I see this guy. I don't recognize him at all. And he's got like this bandana around his face. He goes, Adam. And I'm like, I know a bunch of Adams.
Right.
I go, Adam? He goes, Adam Harris. And I'm like,
shove me and let's see if you are really.
Okay. But it was in that moment that I'm just like, that you're so dumb. Like, that's such a dumb thing to think. This is 25 years ago.
Right.
Like he's lived more of his life since that day than your day. And I didn't even think about it. I was just like, wow, this is interesting. It's taking me back. Right. I remembered once upon a time where if I would have ran into Adam, like say when I was 23, it might've been like, I'm not going to say I would have beat the shit out of the dude, but it would have been like this big male fronting. Right. Who are you now, motherfucker?
Silverback gorilla.
Right. And now I'm proud to say I'm a little bit more further down the path where I can just see things as they are and go, you got kids, you got a wife, you got a business. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah.
And that's cool. It's cool to be able to connect with people who have survived the game thus far. And I think once you get to 40, you just kind of like legit look at people and go, hey, we're still here. Like, not everybody is. And so we got to be grateful for the times that we have. So the next reunion, I'm going. Okay. But you know what I want?
What?
I want catered in pizza, fries,
and cookie
double
dough.
Cheeseburgers, and wax cups full of cookie dough because it's the best nutrition we have to offer our high school kids. Maybe we'll teach them history and economics during this period of time too. And in between the cookie dough and the constantly trying to sleep with each other. What a wild time. But I'd rather be living that life then than living that life now and wondering why I can't go to prom because I don't have a mask or I'm not wearing a box. Let them live.
Yes, I know.
If half of the people are dying, okay. But they're not. You know what I mean? And none of the kids are really. So just let them live.
Right.
All right, Meghann. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been awesome talking to you and catching up to you. I feel like we're back in class again. We're just older now.
Right.
And wiser with less issues.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But I really appreciate your candor. You're the first person that's been brave enough that I haven't spoke to in a long time that's come on and talked about real shit. And I think a lot of people do things like this and they always are a little bit guarded. Like we're always going to guard some things about ourselves. That's just natural. But to come out and talk openly about these things, these traumas takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes you getting over vulnerability. And I've come to learn that vulnerability is the ability to be vulnerable is an incredible strength. It's incredibly telling about your character and your strength. So I really appreciate that. And I'd love to have you back. Just talk again. We just have to be a little more organized, but I had a good time. I hope you did too.
Thank you. I did.
Awesome. Thanks, Meghann.
All right.
That was awesome. It was great catching up.
Yeah.
Let's see how well we did. 2 hours. 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
That's perfect.